This episode of the 7Horse Nation podcast is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's absolutely free to use. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now let's get on with the show. All right, what's up, everybody? This is the 7Horse Nation podcast. First episode.
001.
That's it. Welcome to the first episode. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this podcast to the 7Horse Nation, 7Horse fans all over the world, to go a little deeper than we can on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. You know, pull back the curtain more than we do it on video at the studio and whatnot, but this gives us a free-form opportunity to talk about the band, the experience of putting this project together and keeping it alive, and also to interview some of our friends and associates, our circle of musicians and technical wizards that we work with, to give their unique perspective on their lives and their careers, their story, and their approach to navigating this insane world of music.
Maybe how we all came together.
Sure. The background information of why we work together and how we met, et cetera, et cetera. We want to introduce you to people that are part of our team and people that we collaborate with, and talk about what it is we're up to, which is a perfect way to lead into the fact that this one's a little bit weird in that we did the interview portion that you're going to hear prior to heading into the studio, and then we went into the studio for 3 days, and now we're doing the intro portion of the show after the fact. That's it's a little upside down, but you know, it's how things happen. So if you don't know who we are, if you somehow found your way into this podcast and you have no idea who you're listening to, we're the band 7Horse. Phil Levitt,
Joey Callio,
7Horse. We've been playing together for quite some time, various projects, and this is our band 7Horse that maybe you might be aware of through a song called Meth Lab Zoso sticker that appeared in Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, but we've released 65 songs and had songs appear in various TV shows and films, and also we've released a lot of records, and you can find our stuff anywhere you get your digital music. But we assume most of you already know who we are, so we'll just get into it. We just came out of 3 very intense days at the Station House in Echo Park, which is a room we like to record in. That's the thing we're working on right now. We're heading up to our one of our other collaborators, the great Dave Way, who mixes our stuff. We're going up to his studio as soon as we get through here, and we'll be posting some stuff from inside his room. But what was the experience like the 3 days? And we were in there for about 30 hours. We worked 3 10-hour days, more or less, and cut 4 songs along the way. And how do you feel about everything?
I feel pretty good. I mean, you never know what you're going to get when you go in there. I like that how we do it. We have a mixture of stuff that's pretty dialed in, stuff that's partially dialed in, and then we leave the possibility for just pulling something out of thin air, period. And that's a great mixture.
Waiting for the magic to arrive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's how the magic happens. It's like I think if you go in with every little thing dialed in, it gets stiff.
Right.
So we like to keep it loose and free and allow for the possibility of something that maybe we're not even thinking about happening.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, I think it went really well. I also like how we don't get too, I don't know if the word's precious with what we had in our, maybe the initial map that we had in our mind of the song. We don't freak out if it all of a sudden the song it's like a dog on a leash. It wants to go a different direction that you want to go. We just kind of go with it as soon as it sounds like, hey, this does sound good. Let's check this avenue out.
That's interesting that you mentioned freaking out.
I do that a lot?
Well, no, because it's like I wonder because I know how it is for me, but like for you, the process, the creative process, do you feel like pressure, or are you under stress? Does it worry you that you're going to screw it up or get something wrong or it's not going to be good? I mean, what's your mental state like during that whole experience of recording?
This may be the one of the very few things in life where I don't have any of those
Hmm.
issues. I mean, it's not like this is not a bragging kind of deal. This is just kind of how it is. I just feel like after all these years of doing it, and believe me, I didn't come out of the womb doing it like this. This was
Right.
trial and error.
I mean, let's get it up front. We've been doing this together for, it's coming up on 30 years.
Wait,
I mean,
no.
yeah.
I wish you'd get your
I know,
math right.
I know
Please.
you don't want to admit
Phil,
that.
please.
I know you don't want to actually acknowledge that fact, but I mean, at a certain point, you got to take pride in that.
Sure.
You have to own that.
Sure.
We are getting we are getting older, but the
Yeah.
alternative is
Yeah.
not that appealing.
No,
So
right.
it's better. It's a privilege to
Absolutely.
to be alive and to continue to work together and,
Yeah.
and to do this thing together.
Yeah.
So there's a reason to celebrate that.
Right.
But I know for myself, like, I don't know, I mean, I love the studio, and the creative process is something that I never feel more high than I am when we're doing that stuff. I mean, I just feel so energized and alive. At the same time, though, all that energy, it's like I can't sleep.
Right.
I cannot
Yeah,
sleep.
it does have, there are side effects.
Yeah, I mean, 3 days, like, I barely slept for 3 days, and then you go back in there, after day one, you work a whole day, and then you come home from that, and you're so fired up. I mean, I just could not. It's like 3, 4 in the morning. I'm trying to get to sleep. Then we get up and go do it again. And by the end of the third day, man, I'm wiped out.
Right. It wouldn't matter if we didn't have to go back in the next day
No,
and do
like
some
one day,
more
but-
work.
I mean, and I was thinking about it back in the old days. I mean, we would be in there for weeks, months.
We'd spend a week getting the lunch menu
Yeah,
squared
I mean,
away.
that's how it used to be in the days when you had a record company paying the bills, at least fronting the bills, because of course, as people should know, whenever the record company was paying for stuff, it's your money.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not
They
actually
don't
paying
bring
for
that
anything.
up very
No,
often.
They don't
but-
tell you that. But now
No.
we're paying for it ourselves, so our schedule is a little tighter.
Yeah.
We're trying to get stuff done. and
I like it better.
It's way better.
Stuff actually does get
Yeah.
done. That's the thing. I think this waiting around and playing that game, it's not necessarily conducive to creativity.
Right.
It's kind of, you can get stalled out doing that. But I mean, just going back to your initial question, I feel like what ended up happening over the years is it really became obvious to me that the idea here is just to be more of a lightning rod. Like, let stuff come to you. Sure, get ideas and see little signposts in your life. Whatever you see a message flash up on TV, and you go, "Whoa, what did I just see?" Maybe you saw something wrong. And you wrote it down.
You hear that all the time. People say that all the time about how how do you write songs where you have to like just allow it to happen. And for the longest time, like I didn't make sense of that. That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It sounds like something someone would say because they don't want you to know how it's done.
Right, I mean,
just allow it.
You sit there and you're trying to come up with something and you're grinding, and I'm sure people can relate to this in whatever creative work that you're doing, whether you're writing something or you in your job, you have to be creative, and you've got to come up with an idea, and you're sitting there trying to come up with an idea. It's like the hardest thing to do is come up with an idea.
Right.
A lot of times the idea comes when you stop trying to come up with it,
Right.
and it doesn't. And that's not something that's intuitive. You're sitting there trying to do something. It's not happening. The moment you just forget about all that, that's when things can penetrate.
It's really the more you do it, the better you get at being that person. You know?
That's really the skill, is what you're trying to attain.
Exactly.
Is the ability to be free with it and allow stuff, because it's all, it's there waiting for you to grab onto it. If you can just recognize what it is you're trying to do.
Phil, two of the most important things I ever heard, they weren't saying it. One person was saying it to us, and the other person, I heard it on an interview on TV. The first one was a long time ago. I heard an interview with Chris Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, he's awesome. He said something that was the beginning of me going, oh, I'm not doing this right. His whole thing was like, look, you're always writing. It's not, if you're going to do this, that means you're 24/7 aware.
Right.
And his whole thing is, if I'm in the shower and I get an idea, you turn the shower off and get out and go hum it into, back then it was a cassette or whatever. But you have to move on that moment because it's fleeting. It's a hard lesson to learn. Whatever you do, never lie in bed and go, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to work on that in the morning. Because you'll never remember it. Never. So that's the first piece. The second piece was when we were on tour and we had covered a Neil Diamond song. And so somehow
Sweet Caroline.
Yes. Somehow the manager.
Before it was super popular to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Geez, I couldn't tell you how we were doing it, but I know we deconstruct our stuff, so it was it was a left turn.
Right.
But we somehow the Neil Diamond's management hooked up with our manager Wally at the time, and they invited us. I think it was at Dallas or something. It was somewhere in Texas, and we went to the show.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay,
yeah.
But I think we had backstage passes.
We did,
but you don't get to meet Neil Diamond.
No, you don't get anywhere near him.
But he did send us a note, and on that note, the crinkled note was unfolded and read to us. Don't stop writing music.
Right.
It was like, that's it.
You
Don't
think that was
stop.
because he was like, get off my stuff.
Yeah,
right?
stop playing my song. What, you guys don't know how to write a song?
No songwriter ever says, stop playing my songs. It cannot be.
No.
I must have made that
Not
up.
Neil Diamond.
No, he
especially.
wants people to play
people
his
are
songs.
doing this stuff. He's great.
Yeah, no, he's right. You gotta just stick with it. You know, that's the thing about everything in life. You're gonna hit some speed bumps along the way. You're gonna quote unquote fail, or what you think is failure, but really. And you probably heard this before, but it's true that the only failure is quitting, is giving up. If you have a setback, learn from it, improve on it, and move forward, you're not failing. You've just changed direction. You've learned from a mistake. Everybody can make a mistake. It's not illegal. So just to set the scene for you, we're down here in what we call the Undisclosed Location. We've also referred to it as the Grow Lab because that was a cookieism. But we right down here. It's a little room in my house. I live in an old house, which is kind of unusual in LA, and it has like a basement, and we've got ourselves set up down here. You might see some photographs or video coming out of here. It's a very Spartan situation: cement floor, block walls. I got some semi-sound muffling material up to spare the neighbors, but I've heard from the neighbors they don't mind it.
Excellent.
When we're playing, they
Good.
actually like it. So we must be doing something right.
Speaking
but
of Grow Lab, this
yeah.
place, if you lived here in the 70s, this is where you'd be growing. I mean,
Right,
to me, this is a Grow Lab.
Nobody's going to see this place.
Somebody grew weed in here at some point.
So we're down here, and we've got ourselves set up down here, and it's where we're going to do the podcast from as well. It's like 7HHQ. This is our first one, so we're gonna, as I just spoke about making mistakes, we're probably gonna make some and get ourselves improved as we go. But we're gonna take you into our world, as they say, and talk to you about what we're doing, how we're trying to promote our music out there. So if there's musicians listening, we might be able to shed some light on what it's like to navigate the world of music marketing in 2020.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Should listeners send in topics or questions?
Well, I think you can always, we have an email address at 7horsemusic@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear your questions, topics. Absolutely, man.
Right.
Let's have this thing be as interactive as possible,
Right.
because we need ideas, first of all. And second, it'd be great to hear what you guys think. So you can always reach out to us there or hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, all the places that you get your social media. So this week for our first interview, we decided to talk to a guy who is very inside in the project, a close collaborator of ours, a guy named Brian Whelan. And he is a great musician, multi-instrumentalist. If you've seen us on stage lately, he's up there playing bass with us, but he's a guitar player, a keyboard player, great singer. Over the last year or so, in the last 6 months, I guess, we've put him in the producer's chair, because you need somebody in there to help you
Put some perspective.
put some perspective on this
Too
thing.
much.
Yeah, that's an old Spinal Tap joke. Too much fucking perspective. But he's got, he's kind of, the producer kind of stands in for the audience in a lot of ways. I mean, he's the arbiter of good taste because we're so close to what we're doing. We think everything we're doing is great. So you need somebody in there to go, no, don't do that. Try this instead. But I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. But that is true on a certain level. It's like that's what you're counting on that guy to do.
The bonus with this guy, though, I mean, there's plenty of those guys who are the listener and the arbiter and the good taste and all that stuff. But this guy has all that, and he's better than you,
right,
as a musician.
That's right.
So it's like, he's the kind of guy that if you are on the brink of maybe quitting and doing something else in your life, this guy will break you. You hang out with this guy, and it's like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, so he's a great talent, and we're happy to be working with him, and he brings a lot to the party. Great hang as well, which is a key element.
He's a great guy
in doing this. That's like half the gig, or more. I mean, I realize this. Doing other projects, whether it was Blue Man Group when I was in that, or even just this last year when I was out with Cherie Curry and Bree Darling playing drums, that there's a lot of great musicians. They're everywhere.
Exactly.
Great players are everywhere.
Yep.
It's like, what kind of human being are you?
Right.
Can you hang out with people? Can you be in an enclosed area for 10 straight hours and be cool and not drive people crazy?
Right.
He is one of those guys. Let's check out Brian Whelan.
Let's do it.
All right.
So what are we doing here,
Well,
man?
I want to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to start.
What's going on with this thing?
This is an interview. I don't know if you realize that.
And just so everyone knows, these guys did not have me sign anything.
Not yet.
So everything,
Not yet.
everything is
It's all real.
Yeah, everything is real.
It's raw.
And everything's on the table.
We have no questions prepared.
Yeah.
I've done no research on you
from
at
the
all.
hip, off the cuff.
But I want to add, do you
no research whatsoever.
I've done no research on you. I know who you are though. Do you recall how we met?
Well, we met through William Michael Smith.
That's right.
Did we not?
The inimitable. There's a writer in Houston, a music writer, and gadfly, man about town, named William Michael Smith. Used to do a thing. I don't know. Is he still writing for the? I don't know. Anyway, he did a column called "Lonesome, Ornery, and Mean."
He's a very serious character.
He's serious about music.
Yeah,
and he told me, he told me about this band 7Horse, and I think I just read some stuff that he had written, but then when I was down there in Houston, he told me it was something that I would enjoy.
And that's what he said to me. He said, "You need to meet this guy, Brian Whelan."
Right.
So
well, that's part of his thing,
Right.
Besides being a gadfly,
he's a conduit.
He's kind of like a glue.
Right. So I came and saw you at what is that? The Mexican restaurant that does gigs.
El Cid.
El Cid.
So that's where we actually met.
That's where we met. I met at El Cid.
Okay.
You were doing a gig, a solo acoustic gig
When
at
was
El
that?
Cid.
Wow.
This was
Solo
4 years
acoustic,
ago,
yeah.
4 years ago, something like
about
that.
4 years ago, I think.
4 years ago.
2017, 2018.
Before that.
It was a little
Probably
before.
16.
Yeah,
That's
it
4
was.
years ago.
Yeah, I think it was though. I think it was the end.
So I
of
came and
2016.
saw you at El Cid. You were standing up there playing acoustic guitar, singing your songs. And it's only happened to me a couple of times in my life. One time was with my buddy Darius. I saw him. The same thing happened. I was like, that guy has got something. And I went up to you afterwards. I introduced myself. I said, hey, man, you need somebody. You call me up. I want to play with you. Never heard from this guy. But he's got a band,
Of course.
But
well, that was your thing. You did that. That was yours kind of thing. It's like, I don't know.
What do you mean?
I mean, never mind.
Yeah, because if someone, because someone
jumping
comes
the
up
gun.
to you and
Yeah.
is like,
Yeah.
"I want to play with you," that's like
Yeah.
a huge red flag.
I'm just being honest, man.
I'm just kidding. That's certainly been my experience though. It's like you go everyone I ever go up to and I'm like, "Hey,"
But
man,
I did come in with, hey, William Michael Smith sent me to see you.
No,
You know,
and to
so
be
that,
honest,
I figured that carried some weight.
Well, yes, and honestly, to be honest, like we're joking around, but I actually think that it's very nice and very sweet when, and it doesn't happen a lot, when someone says, "If you ever need someone, call me."
Right.
I don't mean it when I say it. So that's a joke.
I know, but as it turned out, it went the other way because now.
Well, that's what most people usually lead with. Is, "Will you come be in my band?"
Yeah, no,
That's
I wasn't
usually
looking
how
for anybody at that point.
You were like,
because we were a two-piece.
A great sounding two-piece.
We were just a two-piece. Then it dawned on me later. It's like, hey, wait a minute. What about this guy? And so I guess the first thing we worked on was our 2018 record, right? I mean, we hadn't played. We didn't
Super
really,
Effective.
Yeah, we didn't play together before.
Yeah,
before
we worked on a record together, and it was when you had already recorded it.
Yeah, and you came in and did some stuff.
You had already done the basics, and so I would be coming in.
When did you find out that he was not just a guitar playing singer-songwriter guy? I mean, like,
probably.
When did you see him play keyboards?
I didn't. I don't think I ever saw him play until he came into the studio. But I knew that he had played some keyboards for Chuck Berry, which we'll get to because I want to talk to you about that gig. But anyway, let's. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because I do want our audience. This is, this podcast is really aimed at the 7Horse Nation. It's called the 7Horse Nation podcast. And so initially, anyway, it's going to be 7Horse people are going to be listening to it, and a lot of them probably already know your name. But I thought this would be a good way. Our thing is we're going to use our circle of friends as guests first that are in music, and I think everybody's got an interesting story to tell, and certainly, today in the current climate, everybody's got to try to navigate their career one way or another.
Wait. Current climate?
Yeah, the music business.
Wait, is something wrong with you?
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but things kind of blew up a little bit. So let's start at the beginning. Where you're from the Bay Area, right?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Seattle, Washington.
That's right.
And I went to high school in San Jose, in the Bay Area.
There's a lot of
there is a connection here.
There's a lot of weird universe.
And like you guys, I came to LA when I was 18. I came pretty young to to be in show business. What was
the entry point in music? I mean, what was the thing that got you to pick up a guitar or get on a keyboard or whatever it was?
Yeah, I was really young. I was probably 7 years old or something when I saw the Buddy Holly story with Gary Busey.
Right.
And around that same time, there was a La Bamba movie made as well with Lou Diamond Phillips. And, the music was really good, even though it wasn't those actual guys.
Right.
The La Bamba movie is Los Lobos with a bunch of other guys, Brian Setzer. Mm-hmm. And then the Gary Busey movie is Gary Busey.
Right.
And the other two actors who played the Crickets playing together.
Wow.
And so in a way,
the other guys, the actors were
all three actors played and sang, and they did some overdubs. I think it sounds like guitar solos were overdubbed, but the three guys played the rhythm section, would like play live when they did the takes, and so that's what's in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary Busey's like pretty fucking good,
right?
Yeah. Especially for an actor,
right.
I mean, it's not always that way.
No.
So that was kind of how I got into it, and then my father bought me tapes of all those guys. So Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly, Elvis.
What kind of tapes are we talking about here? Cassettes?
They were cassette tapes.
Yes. Yeah.
And they were all like, I can't even find. You can't find them. They were like truck stop tapes.
Yeah.
But they had they were the original masters though. Right. Which I didn't know what that was at the time.
Was a remake.
But when I think back, I'm like, well, the Eddie Cochran greatest hits I had was the actual stuff. It wasn't like sometimes the truck stop stuff is,
Right.
I'm sure the 7Horse hardcore fans know all about that, about how that works with truck stops. But this was the real stuff, and that had a profound effect on me. And later on, got into the other guys from that generation: Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Jerry Lee Lewis, and all the rest of them.
So I mean, you've got a
so
real
those six guys. That's kind of the foundation.
That's a rock and roll foundation.
And so that was the beginning, and that's kind of why I've learned about all the other stuff that I didn't kind of grow up with later. Like we were talking about Sweethearts of the Rodeo. So I didn't hear that until I was like in my mid-20s.
Right.
We didn't have that in the house.
Right.
But it started with that, and my parents on their own had all the late 60s stuff because that was when they bought records.
And what did your parents do? What did your dad do for a living?
My dad worked for banks. Mm-hmm. He did several things, but by the time I was born and growing up, he was working in banks, different things.
Was there anybody playing in your house? Was there any musicians?
Well, there's a piano in the house, and there are a couple of acoustic guitars in the house, and a lot of music being played in the car and in the house all the time.
Right.
On the radio, and then tapes and stuff. And my dad plays a little guitar, sings a little bit. My mom sings a little bit, plays a little piano. My brother sang a little bit. Was that a thing
like at family gatherings that people would play?
Well, yeah. So, and it's my mom's sister is a great musician. She is a great piano player and singer. Mm-hmm. And so she would lead family sing-alongs. And then, on my dad's side, his my dad's father, so my grandfather was a really good musician.
Okay, so it's in the family.
So it's in the genes, and then his aunt, so my father's great aunt, there's some scattered around.
Right.
And then, my mom's brother, who passed away was a long time ago, was also a good musician. So they're in there.
Okay.
She was the least of a musician of her 3 siblings.
Were you like?
But it was in there.
Were you like a self-taught guy? Did they show you how to play? Did you take lessons? Or
No, I mean, they showed me a little bit.
You started on guitar or piano?
Piano.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was a piano in the house, and so I had access to it and would play it, and was asking for piano lessons for maybe a year or so before they acquiesced and started paying for them.
Mm-hmm.
They
Tired of hearing you.
didn't. Well, they didn't want to pay. A lot of kids quit after a year, and a year doesn't really do you any good on piano.
Right.
You really got to get a little more, but once you get it, it's like that's how I learned all the other instruments was through piano training, music theory, and all that. That was the first.
And what happened in like high school? Were you playing in bands?
Well, when I hit puberty, the piano was no longer a cool thing to do. So I started taking lessons when I was 8.
Yeah.
Started in middle school, and then it was like fully in high school. I was like, I don't really want to, this continues to this day.
In the studio, he will.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I like it. It's more work, and you have to kind of you're tethered to the instrument, and I can express myself less on a keyboard than I can on guitar. And I'm not saying everyone is like that, but it's like I'm not like some amazing piano player, and it's like I just feel like I can kind of do a little more. I mean, you understand. You play bass in a band for a long time, and now you're playing lead guitar. We talked about that. I mean, you can express yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not just about looking cool and feeling cool. Like you can really express yourself.
Neither one of those I'm tethered though. I mean, I hear you on the keyboard thing. You are tethered. It's your station.
Stuff breaks a lot. It's hard to monitor, hard to hear. Right. There's a lot that goes into playing keyboards that people don't think about.
It's big. It's heavy.
But guitar really is as easy as it looks.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the kind of logistical side,
Yeah.
Just plug it in, switch it on, turn it up.
It's
you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So, born in Seattle, you relocated to
San Jose, California.
I've heard of it.
Mm-hmm. It was a nice place to go to high school. I had a lot of fun. It was called Archbishop Mitty High School.
Mitty?
Yeah, we talked about this.
You don't call it Archbishop Mitty. That was just Mitty.
Trying to let the people know what was going on there. Yeah.
Sure. It's all, I'm starting to get this whole thing figured
with the
out
Archbishop.
now.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
Were you like writing songs at that time?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably wrote my first song when I was about 14.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, it was about a girl.
All right. It's a popular topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever did that, but it was it's a girl that I met named Becky, and I wrote a song called Rebecca.
Oh, nice.
Rebecca.
And it was actually this is going to pull back the curtain here a little bit. It was a lot like a song called Roberta by Billy Joel, who I was really into.
You're a Billy Joel fan.
Well, and especially at that age,
So
early teens is I was a pretty hardline Billy Joel guy.
How do you get from?
Can't say I totally relate to that. That's okay.
This has been a never-ending discussion in the tour van
I
about the relative value.
Respect the guy. No doubt about it. I think he's really he does a good podcast.
Does he really?
Well, he does a good interview.
Right. Does a good interview.
Great
interview. Does a great interview.
Yeah.
All right, so how do you get from...
And by the way, I'm sorry, Phil, but the Billy Joel thing, that's a never-ending discussion that I have with myself.
Right.
I mean, look, he's polarizing even to me as an individual.
Right.
So I get
as a fan.
Yeah, as a fan.
Anyway. Let me ask you about this, though. How do you get from San Jose, the Archbishop Mitty High School, to the University of Southern California, which is where you went to college, right?
Yes. So I was looking for... I had a 4-track machine in my garage, and... I wanted to be a recording engineer. So I was looking at colleges that offered a recording degree. There weren't that many, and that was one of them. So I got accepted to however many, 5 schools, whatever it was, and we planned trips to go visit them. And we went to LA, we visited Long Beach State, and we visited USC.
Did Long Beach State have a recording engineering program?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Chico State did too. That was the only other school I visited. We canceled the trips to Miami and New York and Connecticut. There were a few other schools. And
God, where in New York did you get?
NYU. Yeah, man.
Get real,
Parents
man.
must have loved you.
But I'm telling you, well, they didn't give me. That was really expensive to go to NYU.
But still,
they
though,
weren't
that's-
offering a lot of. I mean, they were just like, if you
Did you
want to
think
pay
about
the
Berkeley?
full.
Did you think about going to Berkeley?
No, didn't think about going to Berkeley. Yeah, so I mean, when we visited, so here's a crucial piece. I mean, look, I just loved LA.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Right.
Okay, so we get out of the car, get off the plane, and we're going around LA, and I'm just like, I mean, it's huge, and I'm just like, this is. I mean, I loved it, and I had never been. I mean, I didn't go to New York till I was 25 or something.
Right.
But I fell in love with LA, and then the kind of coup de grace was that I had discovered in high school Fleetwood Mac, the Lindsey Buckingham era Fleetwood Mac, and was really into that. And we went and watched the marching band rehearse while we were visiting the campus. And the guy Art Bartner, who is I think still there, is the
the legendary
marching band director, and he's on the microphone and he goes, "I want y'all to get ready to play great, on Saturday because Mick Fleetwood's gonna come out and sit in with us."
Oh my God.
And I was just like,
That's it. Done.
Cancel the trip to New York, cancel Miami. Here. Like, this is happening. This is happening like as soon as possible.
Right. So you went to USC
So I went to USC and I studied. I have like a BA in music. It's kind of a broad major. I was not a performance.
How does that? Has that helped in your career, having that education?
I mean, music theory helps me a lot. Knowing what the hell is going on
that's
with
where
the
you got that. That's
I had some of it before, but that's kind of what the major is in.
It got dialed.
Yeah, because the recording program was actually phased out while I was there. So this is 2000.
Right.
So I have like 3 semesters of a recording degree, obviously incomplete. But around that time, 01, 02, I mean, they took their Studer 2-inch tape machines and they rolled them into a closet and put a sheet over it.
Done.
They weren't the only ones doing that.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing was, dude, the guy stood up my freshman, first day of music recording class. I'm 18. I go in. The guy stands up and goes, "I want you all to know that Pro Tools is a piece of shit." He goes, the director of the recording department.
Nice.
I'm not gonna say his name. But anyway, he was just like, he was wrong. I think probably lost his job. And I'm just saying that it was in like 2 years that the whole thing was gone.
But I will say Pro Tools has come a long way since.
Sure.
It may have been a piece of shit back then.
Well, I'm sorry. So what he was wrong about was that he said it wasn't going to last.
Yeah.
Okay. He goes, this sounds like shit. It's not going to last. Right. And he goes, I'm going to teach you how to splice tape. I'm going to teach you how to route signal flow through like a 24-track SSL. That. I'm like, okay. So, and I was terrible at it. I was really bad. I barely passed any of the classes. Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, that's why we gotta have other guys do the fucking engineering. I can't do. I mean, I'm never gonna be like.
Nobody called you for an engineer.
I'm never gonna be an engineer on a recording session. I promise. As far as I'm concerned, it's like magic. You just plug it in and it works. And
right.
Like,
that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah.
But
a lot of us
the thrust of the education, though, the thing you really took away from it was all the theory and stuff that you can actually apply.
That is definitely the thing that I apply the most from music.
And was there a performing aspect to this, or
not really?
Not really.
I was trying to play in bands.
Right.
It just took a long time. If I mean, couldn't really go to bars and stuff for the first 2-3 years I was there anyway.
Right. No fake ID.
So
never had a fake ID.
So coming out of college, you graduated, right?
Yes.
You finished. Okay. So coming out of college.
That was tight there. I was touch and go for a second. It was like, is this session over?
I definitely limped over the finish line of graduating from high school. I was really good out of the gate, and by the end I was
over it.
Yeah, I was asking professors for favors and just like get me out of here. Yeah.
And at that, were you like starting to do gigs and stuff around town by then?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
there was all kinds of stuff, real life education
brewing.
And college was like I just had to finish it. And I actually finished in 7th semester. I finished a semester early because I piled it on.
Right.
You are a whiz kid.
And got it done.
Natural, the golden child. So, all right. So let's talk about the Broken West. That's that coming out of college. Was that your band that you got into coming out of college?
Well, I think I should probably tell you just since you're
getting real.
I think the first band that I had, I was about 20.
Mm-hmm.
I went and auditioned. They said they needed a singer. And so I went down to someone's rehearsal space downtown and met these 3 guys that I didn't know and auditioned to be their singer. And I was about 20. So that was really the first band where I was fronting the band.
What was that called?
Are they famous?
And it was called The Smooth Pursuit. Yeah.
Smooth.
Well, The Smooth Pursuit, just so you know, that's what happens when you get pulled over and the cop is telling you to follow the light with your eyes.
I see. That's
he is in fact testing your smooth pursuit.
That's an interesting tidbit.
And for us, it was a good for that band. It was a good name,
right?
Except for if you're explaining the name of your band, it's over.
Oh yeah, well no, and then yes, it was a terrible name. So we had that name and we did that, and that was really my first. Because I wanted to tour when I was 18. My parents were like, "You gotta go to school.
Right.
You gotta have something you can fall back." So okay, so I go and I get it done. I get it done early, and then I'm like, I'm going on tour like right fucking now. And so it was. I'd been in this band for 6-8 months, and we one of our roommates was someone's assistant at William Morris, and he called all these clubs and booked us like a couple of months of tours, and just based on working for them.
Right.
So they, this guy kind of gifted us.
So you
a
went
couple
out?
months. So we went out. We had 2 cars.
That was your first tour, Smooth Pursuit.
So that was really the first tour, and we took 2 cars, and we did the Rocky Mountains and the West Coast, and did a couple of months worth of tour dates, and it was really fun. And that was the first time I really did it. I was maybe 21,
right?
Around that same time.
Did you love it?
I did. I loved. Oh yeah.
It's so
For first 10
amazing.
years or so of touring, I was pretty psyched.
Yeah, it's incredible.
There was no place I wouldn't go, no place I wouldn't play. Take a flight. Sick coach, like
Totally.
now I'm all fucking ruined and fucked up.
Yeah,
but
we'll get to
that.
for about 10 years though, I would take all comers,
right,
and go just wherever. I remember doing some weird gig. The first time I went to Nashville, first time I went to New York, all these places, Austin, Texas. Right. It's just weird gig after weird gig, and you sleep on the floor and.
I mean, but that's what it's like at the beginning, right? I mean, you're basically you'll do anything.
Yeah, well, because I went from I started asking people if I could join their band when I was 18, when I moved to LA.
Right.
And, no one wants you to join. I mean, it took 3 years for anyone to even say, like, yes, I will hire you to come play in my band.
Right.
And that's playing 3 hours of covers at a bar.
Right.
And so it took a long time to even make that happen. And so to be able to go play original music.
I mean, as good as you were, you still had trouble getting into bands.
Well, I'm not as good as I am now.
Well, shit, man, I could always get into a band. I got in. People were coming at me left and right. But it's different with drummers. It's different with drummers, I think.
Yeah, and it was a little. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're a little bit of a different time.
Yeah,
that's a factor.
Yeah.
Because 2000 was when it really started to financially. The bottom dropped out financially,
yeah.
so everything changed in that way.
That's true.
And even generationally, I mean, that my generation's not everyone's running out to start a band. It was the beginning of people having internet and. Video games and this and that. Yeah, it's like it's a different kind of a thing.
But you still
and some of it was me. Some of it was my own antisocial weird shit. Why I wasn't just like out in the mix all the time. I never had a fake ID. It's like I didn't know the cool shit to do. I'm thinking about fucking Billy Joel and bleaching my hair and all this shit. It's like,
but
I
you
don't
still
know.
Again with the Billy Joel.
But you did come up in an era where, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea in your mind of I'm gonna do a thing and get signed and make a record and go on tour, that still existed. That whole idea of what it was to be in a band, get signed, go out and play, sell 1 million records, play bigger. I mean, that still the thought of how to do it. That was it.
Well, and it's funny because even when
there was no other way to do it.
I think it's a really good point you bring up though, because when you say that, when you describe it that way, and you guys actually you thought that way and you went and did that.
Yep.
All of that stuff.
That's right.
I didn't think of it that way.
You did not.
I never really, and some of this is obviously, stuff I should probably be discussing with my therapist or my parole officer or something. Yeah. But anyway, it was a lot of it was me. It's like I didn't always have the fucking balls to go out and be like, you need to sign me. Right. I mean, I have never been a great self-promoter. Mm-hmm. I was even worse then than I am now. But also, it wasn't. I loved rock and roll so much, and I still do. And I find that really is like what kind of drives me. Mm-hmm. Fame doesn't really mean that much to me.
Right.
I need, money to live. But being famous is different from making great rock and roll music.
All day long, yeah.
And so that was something, that I don't think I could have explained that when I was in 21 and Smooth Pursuit. I mean, I was just like a young Billy Goat, just going hard.
Is there any place you can hear Smooth Pursuit? Does that exist anywhere like on the
internet? I don't think so. No, I mean, we made, it's one of those things where we made a few hundred CDs or whatever. And
then how about The Broken West? How did that come about?
The Broken West was a little later. That was when I got exposed to the one of the last kind of cool rock scenes, which was like Silver Lake and Echo Park in like 2004 4,
Were you
5,
doing like
6.
straight jobs in between to cover your
Until
ass,
the
or-
Broken West, I had to have other jobs.
What'd you do?
I drove a van for like a delivery service. I worked as an accountant for an ad agency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
Places
know,
in the universe
that's what I
there.
guess that's probably what my parents were talking about. It's like you roll into some place with a degree from USC, even if it's in music. It's like they know that you
Right.
can at least do
Sure,
that, even if
exactly.
you just look like some
Gotcha.
asshole, which I did, you know. But it's like they know that you can stick to something and finish it or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And I, you know, so that was why they told me to go in the first place, and they were right. So yeah, I had to go on some interviews and, you know, work those kinds of jobs. But
But it was always, we were never conflicted about maybe I should do this as opposed to
There's no plan B.
no,
There's no plan B.
it was not.
not really.
Not really.
Yeah. So how'd the Broken West come?
Well, I was playing with a guy named Eugene Edwards, who I had met at the Cinema Bar. He is currently the Dwight Yoakam lead guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
But I met him on my 21st birthday at a bar called the Cinema Bar. And he was playing his music, which I thought was great. And I, again, was like, I'd love to come play with you sometime.
Oh, you did that.
I did. I did.
You went up to somebody and
I've
said,
done
"I wanna
that,
play
in
with
my
you."
early
Yeah.
20s. I mean, I did it a lot.
Right.
And got a lot of no's. And then
Join the club.
and then I did it. And then I did it once. And then occasionally in my early 20s started to get a few yeses. And now I don't have to do it anymore.
Right. Now it's becoming.
No, I'm just kidding. It just, you know, it doesn't come up as much.
Right.
But back then it did. And, you know, we were in the bar and I said, I'll come play with you. And then he didn't call me.
Right.
You know, he like so many gigs, a bunch of guys had to get sick or be unavailable. And I started working for him. The guys from the Broken West were at one of those shows and they wanted to like poach me from his band. And so they asked and I declined. And then later on, one of the other guys from the band called me and said, "Look, will you just come do this one gig?" And I think they said they'd give me $100 or whatever.
Playing what, guitar?
I was the bass player in this band. I was a bass player and I sang harmony. But there were two other guys in the band who wrote the songs and sang, and they were like, it was their band, you know. So I went and joined that band, and we signed with a label called Merge, which is like a well-respected, pretty big indie label in Chapel Hill.
Mm-hmm. Were you a full member of the band, like on the record?
So
deal?
I was like, I was a member. There were four of us.
Right.
There's the two guys I mentioned, me, and then the drummer. We were like the band.
Right.
And so we did that, a version of what you did with Dada.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not to those heights, but like kind of had that basic journey where we learned how to interact with a label and an agent.
You guys made a full record?
We made two.
Two?
Yeah, they had made an EP when I met them, which was excellent. It's called the Dutchman's Gold, and they made this great EP. And Gene loved it, and he was the one who showed it to me. And I loved it, and then got involved with the band, and then we made two full-length records. And it was just a really interesting, it was illuminating. It was a
What kind of music would you call?
Well, we were categorized as indie rock. We were on an indie label, and we were affiliated with those websites and magazines and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what we did was like jangle rock. It was frequently compared to the Byrds and Big Star and Teenage Fan Club and bands like that. So a lot of it was music that I wasn't really even that familiar with. I was familiar with the Byrds, but I didn't really know about Spoon or Teenage Fan Club, and I didn't know anything about Big Star.
Right. Teenage Fan Club is more. It's got.
There were just a lot of pop,
A lot of more power.
a lot of power
Thick
pop, and
power
that
chords.
became this big thing. That became this cross that we carried everywhere because power pop is like not cool. Like no matter what you're doing, it's like once people start talking about power pop. I'm not saying that some people don't love it.
That's their thing, man. Period.
Well, but so just all I'm going to do is tell you this one short. We would play occasionally to like really small audiences of middle-aged white guys, occasionally wearing like Big Star T-shirts.
Right.
I mean, it was fully.
Right.
I mean, we were in that power pop world,
Sure.
which is not always like a cool, Spoon.
But
No
that's
one
like
ever says
smart-
that shit about
you know,
Spoon.
That's like intelligent songwriting.
Yeah. It comes from the Beatles
Right.
thing. It's not so much of the Stones, AC/DC
Right.
side of music.
Right.
It comes from songwriting and pop and like the Beatles and bands, Beach Boys and things like
Well,
that.
I mean, this, we were in a band kind of like that.
Right. Well, and it's just harder. It's harder to get that thing to sell as
Yeah.
like a cigarettes or whiskey sexy thing
Right.
that you can sell.
Right.
It's always been that way. And the Beatles were awesome, and they did everything first, and so that's why they were able to actually be successful. But most other power pop bands that came after, I mean, people talk about Rockpile, people talk about Big Star, and a lot of people don't know who you're talking about. you know, because it's just like they did not get to that
These
level.
are more niche kind of.
Yeah, but that's what comes from that, though.
Right.
I mean, they're all guys who love the Beatles.
And so how did that thing didn't last, though?
It did not last. And everything was very, I think, probably pretty normal. I mean, pretty...
In the arc of a band.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the guy with the theory that there's only one band story.
There's only one band.
Is this an experience is this where you developed that in the inside of this band? Is this where you, and just so we're clear, there's only one, like his theory is there's only one kind of arc of every band that they go through, like the beginning where everybody loves each other and it's all exciting and we're going to do it together, and then you get to have some success and people start to be more about themselves, and then the end when it all blows up. And it's been proven, I mean, a number of times.
It's happened. A lot of bands have that arc. They don't all have that arc, but a lot of them do. I certainly didn't develop that in that band. When I developed it was when after that band was over. Talked to a whole bunch of other guys about their bands, right. and it's like, and it just seems like there's a lot of patterns there, you know. I mean, we basically accumulated all this debt. Mm-hmm. We got a van and we got a corporate card, right. And we just drove back and forth to Boston and Tallahassee and Seattle in like a continuous loop. Mm-hmm. And we did that for 4 or 5
clubs.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. And we would open for bands and play bigger venues, and sometimes we'd do our own show in a smaller place.
4 or 5 years that band lasted?
Yeah, four
and
years.
You've taken advances and doing that kind of stuff, or how you?
Yeah, well, we got like a little, it wasn't like big money. All our money came from licensing.
Right.
That was a really good time. That was a really good time to license music, because there was still this idea that it was not something that everyone was scratching and clawing to do.
Right. What was the biggest thing you guys had?
Well, I mean, we were in a lot of TV shows. We were in like Grey's Anatomy and
Killer
bunch of shows that were pretty big. And
so on the publishing side, you're getting money.
So we were getting. Well, that's how we all lived. That was when we all quit our jobs, right. And we're just in the band. And no one is like rich, but it's enough money for
LA's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, and not everyone quit. I mean, I think everyone still worked something. And for me, it was other gigs.
Right.
But everyone was still doing a little something kind of part-time.
Right.
But we like had the band, and we were on the road a lot. And the biggest thing is we got a couple ads, you know. I mean, we got one ad that they never even aired. Like, I think it could even have been because of our music. I mean, the ad company took the ad to the
client, didn't go.
To the client. The client like fires them.
Right.
Sounds familiar.
So we all get paid, but like, you know, that was a big one. And then there was a couple more ads that actually aired.
What was the biggest show that band did? I mean, either as a support act or as a headliner or whatever.
Well, did a couple of festivals. Nothing huge. I mean, the biggest thing, we would open for bands that would be pulling 1,000 people or 2,000 people, and so we would occasionally be like, we opened for Fountains of Wayne.
Oh yeah.
I remember the first time. So that was kind of like first time I'd been in front of that many people. They played at First Avenue in Minneapolis, which is a historic venue. Yep. And you know, we get out there and the place is a full house, the rafters, the whole thing, and they're there to see Fountains of Wayne, and that was like, that actually worked. Mm-hmm. The agent figured it out on that one, where it's like us opening for Fountains of Wayne is a really good fit.
Right.
And the audience dug it, and you know, it was like this amazing electric show. And I was like, you know, it's 1,000 people.
So at the end of that, the inevitable ending of a band, when you left that, was there a thought at that point of like, I got to get into another band, or were you looking to be a sideman, or were you going to be your own artist? Or what?
I was always a sideman, picking up gigs for people that I liked, and people that I knew
around LA,
or people that would pay, or whatever. Those same three kind of combinations.
Right.
Around LA and just wherever. I mean, I was always trying to work when I wasn't on the road with that band. Mm-hmm. And what happened when that band broke up was I had like an existential crisis. I was probably 29. Mm-hmm. And that band actually made, the singer and I made another record after that band broke up, and we toured that briefly. And that was like, we all had a lot of personal problems, and he like moved to Memphis, stopped drinking, got changed his whole life around.
Right.
And I was going through something kind of similar where, you know, that band ended. That was like all my relationships for the previous however many years was spent in a van with these guys, and now no one wants to like talk to.
It ended badly.
Talk to each other, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not a huge blow up, but it wasn't. No one, you know, we've never like got together again.
Right.
You know, so all of a sudden that's all gone. I'd been in a relationship for a long time, which I had ruined by touring and doing whatever I wanted when I was on tour. So that was over. There's no more money.
Right.
I'm doing a lot of $50 and $100
life
gigs.
Of a musician. Yeah, just summing it up. Right
but I'm
here.
like kind of in my late
All that
20s,
you're
you know,
going
and I'm
with
just
all the
kind of like,
hits.
fuck, you know. It's like, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
How do you get from there to being on stage with Chuck Berry?
that was around that time. The Dwight thing and the Chuck Berry thing kind of happened
We'll
at the
talk
same
about Dwight
time.
in a second, but how about Chuck Berry?
It was all kind of around that same time.
But I mean, how do you get on stage with Chuck Berry?
You want to literally
I
know?
want to know how,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
I mean, you
kinda-
hear about this every once in a while that Chuck Berry would tour by himself or with one guy. He'd have a guy, and then he'd roll into town, and the promoter would put together a pickup band, and nobody would know what was going on. And that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
That's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, the promoter was I worked for this band, and the drummer in that band was in another band that worked at this casino a lot.
Okay.
Like in the lounge,
Right.
or whatever, the rock club. And so that was the band that got picked to be the backup band. Except it was only the drummer, because Chuck had his own bass player.
Right.
And then so they go, well, we need a drummer and a piano player, and that's who he'll hire. So the drummer calls me and he goes, the gig is on April Fool's. And I go, April. And I didn't hear anything. I said, yeah. He goes, you want to do it? I go, well, fucking yes, I do want to.
Chuck Berry, you can play with Chuck Berry on April Fool's
You can
Day.
play with Chuck Berry on April Fool's, and you know, these guys in this band, you know, we were playing rockabilly, and they all knew how much I love
That
Chuck
sounds
Berry.
like somebody who's about to get punked.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, and that's what I thought.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they
Yeah.
all knew how much I liked it. I knew that Ty had played with him before, but he goes, you know, it's coming. And as the weeks went by, like, I don't hear anything about it. No one talks to me. No one tells me anything. No one from the band. No one from the casino. Nothing. April Fool's is like coming up, right? And I'm just like, this isn't happening. If these guys are fucking with me, this isn't
Have you
happening.
been going over Chuck Berry songs?
I don't mean to be I don't mean to pro vibe you here, but I did not mean to
I
go
need
over.
to go
I
over
did
it.
not
You don't
practice
need to
for 1
do-
minute for this gig. No.
You did not practice. You did not listen to any Chuck Berry music.
I've been practicing my whole life. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Okay.
I'm not trying to be a douche,
No,
but
I
it's like
got you.
I did not like
You're
sit
ready.
down and go, now I need to.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
you're
like I
ready.
know what we're gonna do. It's like they say, we're gonna play Chuck
Chuck
Berry
Berry
music.
music. Does he tell you?
The main thing is you just have to watch him.
Right.
That's really all. I mean, everything
The
is going to
foot,
be
right? He stops.
these songs, you know.
But he starts and stops the band with his foot, right?
Right,
I mean,
and it's like pointless to listen to it and learn what keys the songs
plays
are in, because that's always going to
Does
change.
he call
too.
the key before he starts?
He doesn't
playing?
do anything.
He just starts.
He
playing.
had this bass player who was telling everyone else the keys.
Right.
But I didn't need. I can figure
just
out what
see
the
it
key.
by what- you
I went to
just look
music
at
school,
it.
dude. I can figure out. I can figure out like what key he's going to do this 12
that's why
bar
we love
blues.
you,
I
man.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
this is fine. I was. I mean, and I was. You know, it was one of the happiest moments of my life.
So it was a good experience.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, he was not. You know, he was getting
Right. So,
getting on in his years, and it was a loopy, weird show.
Grumpy.
But there were moments when he would.
What town is this in?
Well, this was at Pala Casino, which is in like kind of northeast San Diego County,
Right.
Okay.
up in the canyons.
Right on.
Yeah, but it was great. I mean, you know, it was weird. You would kind of
Did you
expect it to
interact
be.
with him? I mean, what was the
He
experience?
interacted with me on stage
Mhm.
only.
You didn't get to shake his hand? And say,
I didn't get to
"Great
meet him
gig"?
before or
He
after.
just went out.
No one's even allowed. You know, you're not allowed to. No cameras. No nothing.
No fist bump?
I mean, I went to the sound check and I played his guitar that was sitting there. So that
With
was
permission or
I
what?
was going to say.
No,
that's-
I just showed up. I mean, by that time I was kind of getting into the.
I mean, he
thing where-
punched Keith Richards.
Yeah, but he wasn't. But he's not like at the. He's not
Okay.
there.
Right. But the
There-
guitar
he's
was
not
there.
at the. I'm sorry.
How
He's
was
not at the sound check.
Okay,
The
right.
sound check is for like.
What was it like? Was it like? Oh
It
my
was
God,
great. No, it
this
was cool. I mean, I still. I mean, it was like a 335 or so. I still don't know anything about
is
those
Probably, I think
kind of semi-hollow.
345, I think.
Yeah,
I don't
something.
know.
You know, huge amp. He's got a Union Jack guitar strap.
Killer.
I mean, I was just like, you know, I was like, this is like in hog heaven. It was great. You know, and then, you know, I didn't get to meet him or talk to him or anything,
Right.
but like he comes out and does the show, and the bass player had said, hey, you know, if he likes you, he's going to give you a lot of solos, because he's, you know, doesn't want to like shred all night
Right,
or whatever.
right.
And so I was playing a lot of solos, and like when I was playing, he was coming over and like shouting at me and like getting psyched.
In a good way. Like,
yeah. Like, yeah, in a good way. Like while I'm playing, he's over there and he's just like, yeah, you know, he's psyched. And I'm just, I mean, it's like, can you imagine?
I can.
So I was
You're
just
pretty
like-
good, dude. Come on.
But it was
That's what I
great.
was saying
It's incredible.
before.
And that was like, you know, like I say, it's like, you have an existential crisis or wonder if you're doing the right thing. It's like, should I go back?
Then the universe just like,
and then all of a sudden you're doing something like that, and it's like, no, I'm just
going to work out.
Yeah, and
I was right the whole time.
Well, I don't know if you guys. I mean, I still have that from time. I mean, time to time. It's just like, man, it's like I don't know, man. This is like fucking really hard. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Like, did I make a mistake? And then you'll have this moment where you're doing it, and you're like, no, this is right where I'm supposed to be.
Allow myself to have that.
Yeah. That's good.
I mean,
you're a better man than me.
Yeah, there's just no. There's
I do.
Yeah, Phil does.
No plan B, which is like really not the smart way to go through life. Honestly, it's not a great.
Maybe not, but I do think that
it's the best way to go through life.
I think it has a great.
That is the way to go through life.
I just think it has a great place, though. I love it.
Plan B, you will. If you have Plan B,
you're going to Plan B.
You will do
it's
Plan
the new
B.
Plan
Nobody
A.
has a Plan B that doesn't go to Plan B.
That's true, right? Most of the time.
All right.
Although he had a Plan B.
Not really.
I had a Plan B, yeah.
He had a music degree from USC.
There's one person who thinks it's cool that I had a music degree from USC, and I think it's going to be Phil's next question.
Yeah, exactly. It is my next question. I want to hear. Let's talk about it because I wind you up about this on stage a lot in your introduction. Anybody that's seen us with you playing with us knows that I mentioned that you spent 5 long years paying your dues, flying around on private jets with Dwight Yoakam. So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
The great country pop legend now. I mean, I guess he's a
He
legend
is.
by now.
Yeah,
Dwight Yoakam.
that's what I always-
he is a legend.
When I'm drunkenly shouting at people late at night, that's how I describe him.
So how do you end up with Dwight Yoakam? How does that go down?
It was right around the time of the Chuck Berry thing. It was 2009 or something. I was about 29, and I had been seeing this band at the cinema bar where I met Eugene called Randy Weeks.
Right.
And he had a lot of great guys in his band, Mike Stinson, Tony Gilkison. And that was really how I got introduced to LA's roots music community and really started going back and learning about real country music like George Jones and Hank Williams and things like that. Right. So that all started when I was about 21. By the time I was 25 or 26, I had talked them into...
You were kind of like the junior member of this crew,
right? And it took me a little while, but I eventually talked them all into hiring me
mm-hmm.
to come play with them, which I loved. And one of the guys in that kind of circle of musicians was named Josh Grange, and he worked for Dwight. And when he wanted to leave, he called me and said, what would you think about this? And he told me kind of what he did. And I'm like, of course. Because I've gone from kind of being like, what the hell am I, I mean, everything was just gone.
Right.
I was moving around all the time. My ex had taken the dogs. My band had broken up. Guys are moving back to New York and Memphis and all. I mean, it's like, there's nothing.
Right.
That's a country song. Right?
It totally is. And so I get this call and it's like, do you want to work for Dwight? It's like, yes. I mean, absolutely. Right. I didn't ever think, it's like.
That was straight up guitar playing or?
No. I went into his office and met him and he said, this job is keyboards. And I go, yeah, I play keyboards. And he goes, you guys sing? And he goes, you're like a tenor? I go, yeah, I'm a tenor. He goes, okay. And he goes, I assume you play guitar. That's what he said. He goes, I assume you play guitar. He's like, yes, I play guitar. And then he goes, so what about pedal steel? You want to play pedal steel? And I go, well, I've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
Never played one, but if you want me to do it, I will. And he goes, all right. Well, he goes, just go, I mean, you went to USC, right? You
could learn anything.
Yeah. So, I mean,
he was right.
And by the way, that interview, so that was my interview, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I got to go meet him and talk to him, and we talked about the Beatles for 45 minutes, and then at the end he asked me about playing piano and playing steel, and it was brief.
So he's a big Beatles fan.
Well, I walked in looking like one of the Beatles. I had a Beatles haircut,
right.
And
he was sold on that alone.
Well, no, I mean, it's like I walk in looking like that, and he goes, "Hey, you like the Beatles?" Just start talking about the Beatles, and we just did that for a while.
Right.
That was great.
So you ended up playing all those instruments.
Yep.
Pedal steel.
Some better than others.
Right, but good enough to cover your ass in his gig.
Went all over the world. We did all the kind of cool. Played Letterman, played cool festivals. Yeah. And it was just a great, it was a great gig, and I just learned a ton.
This is the one that really hurts Joey because we never got to Letterman.
Okay,
that was like
that's his
what
thing.
I wanted, and that was it.
That's his thing.
More than a Grammy, more than anything. That's just
get me the Letterman stage.
He did, yeah. I got to do. I mean, that's what I mean. Is like I got very, very lucky and got a really cool job. And I did it real hard for about 4 or 5 years, and
that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, I always think it's like it got to the end, and I was like, I want to go try something else. But when I was there, I always thought I was a pretty good pretty good worker. You know, I was a good soldier. I was just like whatever you want. You know, because
we didn't let him down.
Well, and also like so many guys don't use their road bands when they go to record. Like someone like him, you can get any band he wanted.
Right. Yeah.
And he used us, and so made a couple of records with him, and it was like even not knowing anything at all, I knew that was cool.
Right.
And that was like
you
important.
Piano on those records.
Yeah, I mean, I actually started off playing bass. The bass player didn't show up for the first.
What records are we talking about?
So this record is called 3 Pairs, and then I played on another one called Secondhand Heart. And 3 Pairs I'm on a lot. You know, the guitar player lived in Nashville and wasn't on it a lot, and then the bass player, for some reason, was not always used, and so he cut a lot of it with me and Mitch. And then later on, they brought in the other guys, and then when we made the second record, it was the whole band.
Who's playing guitar at that point?
The guy's name was Eddie Perez. He's in the Mavericks now.
Is he the guy that replaced?
Yeah, Pete Anderson was the guy who made all the records.
I saw that guy.
He's
blew me away.
Unique, man. No one played. I mean, he's unique. He was great. I mean, he produced all the stuff. I mean, he was. They did it together.
I had never seen anybody like pick and bend and do that kind of hardcore Telecaster. Yeah. Master.
I mean, unique, awesome, and real influential too. I mean, that version of honky tonk had its own kind of influence on others. Anyway, played on some records. Started off on bass, but I played keys. I did background vocals. I did some pedal steel.
Killer.
I mean, and it was a lot of real studios too, which I had never been. I'd never been
in LA.
Yeah, so I'd never been
ones?
to Capitol. He did East West, which I think is like United Western, and then he did Henson Studios, which is the former A&M lot. So they're all. I mean, he's really into that.
Right.
The real thing. Mm-hmm. If Gold Star had been around, he would have been recording there.
Old gear.
Yeah, old gear.
Great and, classic rooms.
No Village, huh?
Never with him. No. I mean, in fact, I haven't ever done it. I don't think he has worked over there, but I could be wrong.
This is all Hollywood.
Yeah, he's big. He lived.
He's
big Hollywood guy.
Yeah.
Big Hollywood guy. Likes to drive down and into Hollywood and go to the studio. I mean, he loves it.
Yeah.
Friggin' loves it. I mean, being in Capitol is like he just loves it, and it's cool and it's palpable.
Sinatra photos on the wall.
And it's just. I mean, it's great. It's just like you can latch on to that.
Yeah.
And go in and actually do something that's really. You know what I mean? It's when you can be in the studio and just completely forget about all the other shit. Forget that it's a job. Forget about your life, and realize that you created something that sounds good.
Yeah.
Someone could hear it. Someone's gonna hear it. And it's like this could go. When you actually have that.
Right.
I mean,
it isn't a job at that point.
At that point,
It's not a job.
At that point, to me, it's like I'm always irritated when people post on. Drummers do this all the time. They'll take a photo from behind. They're at a gig. They take a photo from behind the drum set and go, "My office tonight." Right. And I always want to come. It's like, don't do that. Yeah. That's not your office, bro. That is not your office. We don't work in an office.
That isn't an office.
That's the whole idea of this. Is that you did everything you could to stay out of an office, and now you're calling it your office. No, man, it's not an office. Yeah. You're on a gig.
Yeah.
Why did you leave Dwight Yoakam?
I went solo. And just for everyone listening at home, I'm using air quotes there.
Did you get to say that classic line, "Guys, I'm leaving the group"? Did you get to say that?
No, it wasn't like that. I mean, it was. I mean, honestly, it's like the best thing. I mean, it's like one of the best things that ever happened to me. It was great.
But you had a moment where you decided you wanted to pursue your own.
Well, yeah. So, and working for him, I mean, he's working. It's like working for any of these guys that want to work, Dave Grohl or whoever. It's like these guys want to fucking work. Right. They don't want to sit around and whatever. It's like they have an audience and they give a shit. Exactly. They want
now more than ever. That's where you got to be. You have to be out there in front of the audience to make money.
Well, yeah, but he also. I mean, look, he's got a channel on Sirius XM. Right. He's making records. Yeah. He's an actor. I mean, this guy wants to work.
Yeah.
And like all due respect is great. I just kind of it takes up your whole life when you're doing it. And for 4 or 5 years, I was happy to do that.
But this was not, and these were, occasionally you guys were on a tour bus, but most of the time you did fly, right?
It was a little bit of everything. Yeah, we did commercial flights, we did some charter flights, we were on a bus sometimes. He did a lot of weekend shows. So
how many buses?
We weren't on sometimes one, sometimes two. It would depend on how it was all configured. Because everything was always different. It's like, it just depended. But it was all different.
Came a time when you decided that
Yeah,
you wanted to do your own thing, and you were going to let this gig go in order to do it.
Yeah,
because you couldn't do both.
I made a record under my name while I was working for him.
Right.
And I had, the money to hire a publicist and this kind of thing, but I didn't have any time to go promote it at all or play any shows.
Right.
Didn't play that many shows of my own. I did as many as I could, but I wasn't doing much else besides working for him, just because it was time consuming. So I had another record that was done, and
this was what, Decider or
Decider was the first one. This one was called Sugarland,
right?
And so when that was done, I had been with him for a while. He had done 2 records.
So I must have met you. I mean, you must have been just coming out of that thing when I met you, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's when I was down in Houston a lot with. I mean, I was hubbing out of Houston, so I was there a lot, and you guys were there too at that time. So, but that's how that happened, and that record came out, and I did 18 months or so of pretty heavy solo touring.
Right.
Some of it was literally solo.
Right. Right.
I had a lot of.
But that was with. I mean, not signed, right? Doing it on your own.
Oh no, I wasn't signed. I booked it myself.
Right.
I did everything myself. I sold the merch myself. I, did all the driving, the tour routing. It's like whatever.
But at that point, you were. I mean, you're like fully committed to being a solo artist out there doing your thing.
And I had some money that I saved up, and so I was able to do that for about a year and a half before I ran out of money, and I had to go back to being a sideman. But it's fine. I mean, look. I mean, I'm always gonna. Perhaps to my detriment, I don't know, but I'm always happy to be a part of a group. I don't have to be the front man. I love being the front man. I think I'm good at it, but it's like I'm not compelled to only do that.
Well, this is
part of it's my job, but part of it's I like it. I like to be on the team and to create something together that sounds good.
Right.
You can't just do it with one guy.
Right.
It's like you need a bunch of guys.
Well, this leads me to like now, which I want to talk to everybody that we have on this thing about how do you navigate? I mean, the music business from even when you started, and you came up in the early 2000s. I mean, we started in the early 90s when there was the old school really did still exist the way it always was. We didn't know anything about how to do things the way we're doing them now.
Just getting signed was
that was it. That was it. Back in those days, that's all you had to do. You thought anyway.
That's it.
I mean, that was your job, was to get signed, and then everything else was going to take care of itself.
I just want to say before you finish the question, I mean, like when we travel and when we hang out, and Phil and Joey tell me stories about being in the music business in the 90s, it is like really, really cool. And so I'm glad that they are decided to share some of this with you vis-a-vis this podcast.
Right.
And just telling you, I mean, I think it's great, and not just the music. I mean, you guys have some great rock and roll stories.
You are Letterman.
That's, I'm telling you, that one
that's
going to stick in his craw.
That's awesome. We can share this.
But what I want to know from you
share this moment.
What I want to know from you is, though, what's your assessment of where things are? How do you survive now going forward? How do you put it together? And do you still have faith in yourself and what you do, and an ability to keep a positive outlook on what you're doing with your life, given the destruction of everything?
It's a great question, and it has 5 parts. So I'm going to answer them one by one.
He already knew. That is a USC mind.
I mean, look, the faith in myself, it comes and goes.
Right.
I've always tried to stay with it. This is something that I started doing when I was 6, 7, 8. I mean, I was the weird kid who was trying to find a room full of classmates to perform for.
Yeah.
So it started a long, long time ago, and it's certainly had its kind of ups and downs along the way. But yes, the main part of your question that interested me was yes, I believe in music. I believe in rock and roll to be a positive force, to be something that can bring people together. But a lot of things that form our entertainment whole are actually a little more divisive or polarizing. I think a lot of the time music can really bring people together. So I know that kind of cheesy, but that's, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have some of that in me, because it's just too hard.
Yeah.
It's just too hard to go out and be a true mercenary and just do it for money. I've tried.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to believe in what you're doing.
So true. Thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it. All right. That was cool. Brian Whelan, everybody.
Very, very interesting fellow.
All right. So now we're going to get up to Dave's and get to work on mixing these 4 songs that we just came out with. You want to say what the song titles are? Just preview it? You don't? Why not? All right, don't.
Yeah,
he doesn't want
let's
to.
wait.
All right.
Let's leave something to talk about on the next podcast.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and we're going to do it again. You want to do it again?
I do.
All right, we're going to try to do maybe a bi-monthly podcast to start, and keep this kind of format where we will talk to each other for a while, and then we'll talk to somebody else. And again, hit us up, 7horsemusic@gmail.com with your questions or comments. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter occasionally, and any other new social media platforms that may pop up. TikTok. We put a few videos up. I don't know if anybody's looking at
TikTok.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out, man. I mean, there's some strange things up on TikTok that go viral. I don't know how. We haven't. Right now, I know all about how to drop a Mentos into a gallon bottle of Coca-Cola. What that does.
That's been around for
I mean, people are doing it on TikTok and blowing up. I don't know what the big deal is, but
maybe they went around when that was happening.
Maybe
on
not.
YouTube.
Yeah, right.
All right. So we'll see you next time on the 7 Horse Nation podcast.
Later.